After arresting a black man, the cops discover his true identity, leaving them utterly stunned. Witness how Samuel Reed and his family navigate a hostile new environment, challenge systemic racism, and fight for their dignity in a community that's reluctant to change. Also, don't forget to comment from where you are listening from, and if you like this video, subscribe to our channel. Samuel Reed, a 45-year-old lieutenant colonel in the Nashville Police Department, always felt a sense of pride in his work. After dedicating over 22 years to his service, he and his family had built a comfortable and secure life in Nashville. His wife, Vanessa, worked as a nurse at the local hospital, and their teenage children, Tyler and Chloe, were well-adjusted and thriving in their schools. One Monday morning, as Samuel was reviewing reports in his office, he received a phone call from the police chief summoning him for an urgent meeting. "Samuel, we have a situation," the chief began with a grave tone. "You've been transferred to Staunton, Tennessee. They need someone with your expertise to lead a special operation there." The news of the transfer left Samuel stunned. "But sir, my family, we're all settled here." "Why Staunton?" he asked, grappling with the sudden change. The request came directly from the governor. "It's a necessity. I understand it's a big shift, but we believe you're the right person for the job." Samuel left the meeting feeling overwhelmed. He knew the move would be difficult for his family, but duty called. When he got home, Vanessa was in the kitchen preparing dinner, and the kids were laughing at something on TV in the living room. "Honey, we need to talk," he said with a serious expression. Vanessa looked up, concerned. "What's wrong, Samuel?" He sighed. "I've been transferred to Staunton, Tennessee. We have to move in a month." Tyler and Chloe overheard and came into the kitchen. "Move to Tennessee?" Tyler asked, shocked. "But what about our friends in school?" "I know it's a big change," Samuel replied, trying to stay calm. "But it's an important career opportunity. We need to support each other as a family." Vanessa nodded, trying to hide her concern. "Okay, Samuel, we'll face this together." In the days that followed, the Reed family began preparing for the move. They said their goodbyes to friends and colleagues, packed up their belongings, and mentally prepared for the new chapter in Staunton. On the eve of the move, Samuel and Vanessa talked about the future as they packed the last few items. "I'm worried about how we'll be received there," Samuel admitted, looking out the living room window. "It'll be okay, Samuel. You've always faced challenges, and we'll be in this together," Vanessa reassured him, squeezing his hand. "I hope so, Vanessa. I really do." With a mix of anticipation and apprehension, the Reed family set off for Staunton, ready to face the unknown and determined to stay united no matter what challenges lay ahead. The journey from Nashville to Staunton was long and quiet. Samuel drove the family car while Vanessa and the kids watched the landscape change from tall buildings to open fields and quieter roads. The anxiety was palpable. When they finally arrived in Staunton, the small town seemed almost asleep. It was a stark contrast to the vibrant life in Nashville. The houses were smaller, the streets narrower, and the pace of life slower. "Welcome to Staunton," Samuel said, trying to sound upbeat, though he knew his family felt the same nervousness he did. "It's different," Chloe commented, looking out the car window. "It's definitely not Nashville," Tyler added, crossing his arms. Vanessa tried to stay optimistic. "Let's give it a chance. Who knows, it might be a good change." They drove to the house the precinct had arranged for them. It was simple, but spacious enough for the family. As they unloaded their bags, neighbors watched from their porches, some with curious looks, others with less friendly expressions. The next morning, Samuel went to the Staunton police station to introduce himself. The building was old, with red brick walls and a faded sign. He walked in and was greeted by a receptionist who seemed surprised to see him. "Good morning. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Reed. I'm here to take command of the special operation." The receptionist, a middle-aged woman with gray hair, looked at him for a moment before responding. "Ah, yes, of course. I'll get the chief." While he waited, Samuel took in his surroundings. Several white officers eyed him with suspicion. Finally, the precinct chief, Captain Miller, appeared. He was a burly man in his 50s with a stern expression. "Reed, right? Let's talk in my office." Once inside the office, Miller closed the door and sat down, gesturing for Samuel to take a seat. "Listen, Reed, I know you've been sent here by higher-ups, but we have our own way of doing things here." Samuel remained composed. "Understood, Captain. I'm here to help and collaborate in any way I can." Miller smiled, though the smile didn't reach his eyes. "Great. I hope we can come to an understanding." Back at home, Vanessa and the kids were unpacking the last few boxes. Vanessa paused for a moment and looked out the window, watching the neighbors. "I hope we can adapt here," she said, more to herself than to the kids. "We will, Mom," Tyler said, trying to be positive. "It'll be tough, but we're strong." Chloe, who was organizing her books on the shelf, looked at her mom. "Yeah. Together we can do this." That night, the family gathered for dinner. Despite being in a new environment, the familiar ritual brought some comfort. Samuel recounted his first day at the precinct and the impressions he had. "It won't be easy," Samuel admitted. "But we faced tough things before. We'll get through this together." Vanessa held Samuel's hand for a moment. "We're all in this together, one day at a time." And so the Reed family began to adjust to life in Staunton, aware of the challenges they would face, but determined to remain united and strong. In the early days in Staunton, the Reed family tried to settle into their new routine. Samuel left early for the precinct, where the reception remained cold, and the suspicious glances continued. Vanessa started her job at the local hospital, where she also felt a certain distance from her colleagues. However, her kind and professional nature soon began to break down barriers. Tyler and Chloe started classes at their new school, where they encountered both curiosity and prejudice. At the precinct, Samuel realized it would be a long road to earn the trust of his new team. One morning, arriving for the daily meeting, he noticed the conversations abruptly ceased as he entered the room. "Good morning, everyone," Samuel said, trying to sound confident. Some responded with murmurs, while others just glanced at him briefly. Sergeant Collins, one of the veterans, seemed particularly resistant to Samuel's presence. "Let's start with the updates on the ongoing cases," Samuel said, looking at the papers in front of him. "Collins, can you give us an update on the status of the Main Street robbery investigation?" Samuel asked. Collins gave Samuel a cold look before replying, "We're following the usual leads. Nothing new so far." Samuel stayed calm. "All right, we'll need to put more effort into this. Can we discuss it after the meeting?" Collins nodded reluctantly. "Sure." Meanwhile, Vanessa also faced challenges at the hospital. During a break, she attempted to socialize with some fellow nurses, but the reception was lukewarm. "Hi, I'm Vanessa Reed. My family and I just moved here," she introduced herself. One of the nurses, Sarah, smiled briefly. "Ah, you're the new wife of the transferred policeman. I hope he adapts well." Vanessa tried to hide her disappointment at the vague response. "Thank you. I'm looking forward to working here and getting to know everyone." At school, Tyler and Chloe were trying to find their place. At lunch, Tyler sat with some classmates, but the conversation quickly turned to his father. "I heard your dad was a great cop in Nashville," one of the boys said in a tone Tyler couldn't quite read. "Has he ever arrested anyone famous?" "Not that I know of," Tyler replied, trying to keep the conversation light. "But he's very good at what he does." "I hope so," said the boy, casting a glance at the others. "Things are different here." Chloe, on the other hand, faced more direct comments as she walked through the halls. She heard whispers and laughter. One of the girls approached her. "So you're new here, right? Where are you from?" "Nashville," Chloe replied, trying to sound confident. "Ah, the big city. I hope you can get used to our small town," said the girl with a smile that didn't seem friendly. That evening, the family gathered for dinner, a moment everyone looked forward to after a challenging day. Samuel recounted his interaction with Collins, while Vanessa mentioned her struggle to make new friends at the hospital. Tyler and Chloe shared their experiences at school. "It was a tough day," Samuel said with a sigh, "but I'm confident things will improve." Vanessa held his hand. "We will adapt. It may take time, but we'll get there. Tyler agreed. Yeah, we need to be patient. People here don't know us yet. Chloe smiled shyly. And we have each other. That's the most important thing. With family unity as their strength, the Reeds were determined to face the challenges in Staunton, knowing they could overcome any obstacle together. As the days in Staunton turned into weeks, Samuel Reed continued to face resistance at the precinct. The initial coldness of his colleagues began to turn into more openly hostile attitudes. Veiled comments and racist jokes became commonplace, and Samuel knew he needed to document everything, even as he tried to remain calm and composed. One morning, as Samuel was reviewing reports in his office, he heard laughter coming from the next room. He decided to check in. As he approached, he clearly heard Sergeant Collins telling an offensive joke involving racial stereotypes. The laughter stopped abruptly when Samuel entered the room. "Collins, can I speak with you for a moment?" Samuel asked, keeping his voice steady. Collins stood up, visibly annoyed, and followed Samuel into the office. Once the door closed, Samuel looked directly into Collins's eyes. "These jokes are unacceptable, Sergeant. We need to maintain a professional and respectful work environment." Collins folded his arms. "Look, Reed, it's just a joke. You're overreacting." "No, Collins, I'm not. This kind of behavior won't be tolerated. I hope you understand that." Collins left the office without responding, but Samuel knew the tension was far from resolved. He made a detailed note of the incident, knowing that he might need the evidence in the future. Meanwhile, at school, Tyler and Chloe were also facing prejudice. Tyler was playing basketball in the gym when one of his teammates, Dylan, started making provocative comments. "Hey, Tyler, I heard your dad thinks he can come here and boss everyone around. Is that true?" Tyler stopped dribbling and looked at Dylan. "My dad just wants to do his job. Why does that bother you so much?" Dylan shrugged. "I just think it's funny. Things are different here. He'll have to get used to it." Tyler sighed and returned to the game, trying to ignore the comments. He knew he needed to focus on playing well and showing he deserved respect. Chloe, on the other hand, was in the library trying to study for a math test. She noticed a group of girls looking at her and whispering. One of them, Heather, approached. "Do you feel very different here, Chloe? It must be strange coming from a big city." Chloe tried to smile. "It's a bit different, yes, but I'm getting used to it." Heather looked at Chloe's books. "I hope you can keep up. Things here can be challenging." Chloe thanked her and continued studying, but Heather's words echoed in her mind. She knew she was being tested and needed to show she was capable. At home, over dinner, the Reed family shared their experiences of the day. Samuel talked about the incident with Collins and the sergeant's indifferent response. "This is unacceptable, Samuel," Vanessa said, worried. "You can't continue to be treated like this." "I know, Vanessa. I'm documenting everything. But I need to be careful. I can't lose my cool." Tyler added, "Today at basketball practice, one of the boys started making jokes about you, Dad. They don't understand." Chloe nodded. "And at school, the girls act like I don't belong here." Samuel sighed. "We're all facing this, but we need to be strong. They want us to give up, to show weakness, but we won't give in." Vanessa held Samuel's hand. "We're in this together, and we'll get through it." With the unwavering support of his family, Samuel knew he could rise to the challenges in Staunton. The fight against prejudice would be long and difficult, but together they could overcome any adversity. It was a Friday night when Samuel decided to go for a run through the quiet streets of Staunton. He always found peace in running, a chance to clear his mind and relieve the week's accumulated stress. He put on his running clothes, grabbed his headphones, and left the house. As he ran, Samuel reflected on the challenges his family had been facing. The resistance at the police station, the prejudice at school for Tyler and Chloe, and the suspicious looks from some neighbors. But he also thought of his family's strength, the togetherness that kept them united. The night air was cool, and the streets were empty. After about 30 minutes, Samuel decided to head back home. On his way, he noticed a police car patrolling the area. Samuel waved casually, but the car stopped, and 2 officers quickly exited. "Hey, you there!" shouted one of the officers, his hand near his holster. "Stop right there." Samuel stopped and removed his headphones. "Good evening, officers. Is there a problem?" The officer who spoke, a burly white man, approached with a stern expression. "What are you doing out here at this hour? You don't seem to be from around here." "I'm just out for a run," Samuel replied calmly. "I'm Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Reed, recently transferred to the Staunton Police Department." The second officer, a young man with a thin face, looked at him suspiciously. "ID," demanded the burly officer. Samuel took a deep breath, feeling the tension rise. "I don't have my ID on me. I'm just running close to home." The first officer laughed contemptuously. "Right. Reed, do you expect us to believe that a man like you lives in this neighborhood?" "What do you mean by a man like me?" Samuel asked, keeping his voice steady. "You know exactly what I mean. Now get on the ground." "Hands on your head," ordered the older officer. Samuel raised his hands in a calm gesture. "Officers, this is a big misunderstanding. I'm actually a police lieutenant colonel. We can resolve this without any issues." "Get down on the ground now!" shouted the young officer, pulling out his baton as the situation spiraled out of control. Samuel slowly knelt down and lay on the ground. The officers quickly handcuffed him, ignoring his attempts to explain. "What a catch," said the older officer, lightly kicking Samuel's side. "Let's see what else we can find out about you." Meanwhile, back at home, Vanessa began to worry about Samuel's lateness. He usually didn't stay out this long. She called his cell phone, but there was no answer. "Tyler, Chloe, come here," Vanessa called, trying to hide the growing anxiety in her voice. "What is it, Mom?" Tyler asked, entering the room with Chloe. "Your father is taking longer than usual. I'm worried." Tyler grabbed the car keys. "I'll go look for him. He must be around." Chloe held her mother's hand. "It'll be okay, Mom." Tyler drove through the nearby streets, searching for Samuel when he saw the flashing lights of a police car in the distance. His heart raced as he approached. He saw Samuel handcuffed, being pushed into the back seat of the car. "Dad!" Tyler shouted, getting out of the car and running toward the officers. "Son, stay calm," Samuel said, trying to maintain his composure. "Please, go get my ID from home and bring it here." The older officer looked at Tyler disdainfully. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm his son. I'll get the ID now," Tyler replied. He quickly returned home, grabbed Samuel's wallet, and hurried back. He handed the ID to the officers, who finally verified Samuel's identity. "Shit," muttered the younger officer, realizing the mistake. The older officer looked furious, but knew they had made a big error. "Take off the cuffs." "Sorry for the misunderstanding," the young officer said, clearly uncomfortable. Samuel stood up, rubbing his wrists. "This won't be forgotten. You'll answer for it," he stated firmly. Back home, Vanessa hugged Samuel tightly, relieved to see him safe and sound. "Are you all right?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I am, but this can't go unchallenged," Samuel replied, determination evident in his eyes. "They need to be held accountable." The incident not only shook the Reed family but also ignited a flame of justice in Samuel, who knew the fight against prejudice in Staunton was just beginning. After the humiliating encounter, Samuel Reed returned home with a mix of frustration and resolve. He couldn't ignore what had happened the night before. He needed to act, not just for himself, but to ensure others wouldn't face the same situation. The next morning, the house was quiet, each family member lost in thoughts about the incident. Samuel knew he needed to talk to everyone about the next steps. "Let's have breakfast together," Samuel suggested, trying to keep his tone calm as they sat at the table. Vanessa looked at him with concern. "What are you going to do, Samuel?" she asked. "I'm going to report the incident to the police chief. They need to know what happened. Additionally, I plan to file a formal complaint," Samuel replied. Tyler, visibly shaken by what he had witnessed, looked at his father with admiration. "Do you think this will change anything, Dad?" "Maybe not immediately, son," Samuel answered. "But it's a start, and it's the right thing to do." After breakfast, Samuel headed to the police station. As he walked in, he felt the stares of his colleagues on him. He went straight to Captain Miller's office and knocked on the door. "Come in," Miller called out without looking up from the papers on his desk. "Captain, I need to discuss something serious that happened last night," Samuel said, closing the door behind him. Miller finally looked up from his papers. "What happened, Reed?" Samuel detailed the incident, describing the officer's approach and the humiliation he endured. Miller listened in silence, his expression growing increasingly serious. "This is unacceptable," Miller finally said. "Do you have witnesses?" "My son Tyler saw everything, and I want to file a formal complaint against the officers involved." Miller sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I'll take care of it. We'll investigate and take appropriate action." Meanwhile, at school, Tyler and Chloe were dealing with the repercussions during the break. Dylan, the boy who used to tease Tyler, approached him. "I heard your dad was detained last night," Dylan said with a sarcastic smile. "It was a mistake," Tyler replied, trying to stay calm. "They didn't know who he was." "Yeah, I heard. But you know, Tyler, sometimes, even if you're important, people still judge you by the color of your skin." Tyler stared at Dylan, trying to keep his anger in check. "My dad will do what's right, and things will change." Dylan shrugged. "We'll see." At the police station, the investigation began. Samuel continued his work, but the atmosphere grew more tense than ever. Some colleagues avoided eye contact, while others looked at him with open disdain. He knew he was being closely watched. One afternoon, as he reviewed reports, the door to his office opened abruptly. It was Collins. "Can we talk?" Collins asked with an unreadable expression. Samuel nodded, gesturing for Collins to sit. "What do you want, Collins?" Collins began, avoiding Samuel's gaze. "I heard about what happened. I'm not going to lie. I don't like how things are changing around here. But no one deserves what you went through." "That's good to hear, Collins," Samuel replied, expressionless. "But words aren't enough. We need action. This can't continue." Collins stood up, hesitating. "I know. I hope things will change." That night at home, Samuel and Vanessa discussed the next steps. "Do you think they'll actually do something about it?" Vanessa asked, worried. "I hope so," Samuel replied. "But if they don't, we'll take it further. We'll go to the media if necessary. I'm not letting this go unpunished." Vanessa held Samuel's hand. "We're all with you. We'll get through this together." With a firm decision to fight injustice, Samuel knew the battle was just beginning. He was prepared to face the challenges, knowing his family and justice were on his side. The next morning, Samuel Reed arrived at the police station with renewed determination. He knew the road ahead would be tough, but he was ready to fight for justice. As he walked in, he noticed a subtle change in the atmosphere. Whispers filled the corridors, and curious glances followed him. Captain Miller had ordered an internal investigation into the incident, and the presence of outside investigators only heightened the tension. Samuel met with the lead investigator, Detective Simmons, a middle-aged man with a keen eye. "Good morning, Lieutenant Colonel Reed," Simmons said, shaking Samuel's hand firmly. "I'm here to conduct the investigation into what happened Friday night." "Good morning, Detective Simmons," Samuel replied. "Thank you for being here. I'm willing to cooperate in any way possible." Meanwhile, at school, Tyler and Chloe also felt the impact of the incident. During history class, the teacher, Mrs. Parker, discussed civil rights and the fight against racism. Tyler knew everyone in the room was thinking about him and his family. "We can learn a lot from history," Mrs. Parker said, "but we also need to reflect on what's happening in our own lives and communities." After class, Dylan approached Tyler again. "Dude, looks like your family is in the middle of a storm." "Yes, and we're fighting for justice," Tyler replied, trying to stay composed. "This won't stop us." At the police station, Samuel sat with Simmons and two other investigators, recounting the events of that night. "I was just running near my house," Samuel explained. "When the officers approached me, I tried to explain who I was, but they wouldn't listen." Simmons took detailed notes. "I understand. We'll speak to the officers involved and review what happened." As the investigation progressed, tension in the police station grew. Many officers felt the pressure, knowing their actions were under scrutiny. Sergeant Collins, who had been defiant from the start, now seemed more cautious. "Reed, can I talk to you?" Collins said, approaching Samuel in the hallway. "Of course, Collins," Samuel replied, keeping his tone neutral. Collins hesitated before speaking. "I don't agree with everything happening, but no one should go through what you did. If you need anything, I'm here." Samuel looked at Collins, surprised by the sudden change in attitude. "Thank you, Collins. We need to work together to change things around here." At home, Vanessa was concerned about the safety of Samuel and the children. "Samuel, I'm scared of what might happen. What if they retaliate?" "I know it's hard, Vanessa," Samuel replied, holding her hand. "But we have to be strong. I'm doing this for us and for everyone who faces the same prejudice." Chloe, who had been listening to the conversation, approached. "Dad, we're with you. We'll get through this together." The following week, the investigators completed their analysis of the evidence and statements. Captain Miller called a meeting with Samuel and the officers involved. "Reed, we want to inform you that after a thorough investigation, the officers responsible for the incident have been found guilty of misconduct and will be suspended immediately," Miller said, looking directly at Samuel. "This is a step in the right direction," Samuel replied. "Thank you for your support, Captain." As he left the meeting, Samuel felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. He knew the battle was far from over, but this was a beginning. He walked out of the police station, looked up at the sky, and felt a new hope grow within him. Back home, Samuel shared the news with his family. Vanessa smiled, relieved, and Tyler and Chloe hugged him. It had been a few weeks since the officers involved were suspended. Samuel Reed was focused on preparing for the next step, the trial. The case had gained notoriety in the city, and the community was divided between supporters of Samuel and those still resistant to change. On the morning of the trial, Samuel arrived at the courthouse, accompanied by his lawyer, Mr. Thompson, and his family. Vanessa held his hand firmly while Tyler and Chloe stood beside her, both with determined expressions. Inside the courtroom, the atmosphere was solemn. Lawyers from both sides were prepared to present their arguments. The judge entered the room, and everyone stood up. "You may sit down," said the judge, settling into his chair. "We are here today to determine the culpability of the defendants in the case of misconduct and abuse of power against Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Reed." The defense lawyer, Mr. Walker, stood up first to present his case. "Your Honor, my clients acted on limited information, and in a high-tension situation, they followed police protocol to ensure community safety." Then Samuel's lawyer, Mr. Thompson, made his statement. "Your Honor, this case is not just a procedural error. It's a pattern of racial discrimination that cannot be tolerated. My client was the victim of unfair treatment and humiliation simply because of his skin color. During the trial, witnesses were called to testify, including Tyler, who described the emotional impact of the incident on his family. Chloe also spoke about how the event affected her view of justice and equality. After days of arguments and deliberations, the judge finally delivered his verdict based on the evidence and witness testimony. This court finds the defendants guilty of misconduct and abuse of power. They will be suspended from their duties immediately and face additional disciplinary consequences. A murmur of approval spread through the room. Vanessa squeezed Samuel's hand with relief, while Tyler and Chloe hugged each other, thrilled. "We did it, Dad," Tyler said with a smile. "We got justice." Samuel looked at his family with gratitude. "Yes, we did. But this isn't just a victory for us. It's a victory for everyone fighting against injustice." After the trial, Samuel and his family were surrounded by friends, supporters, and reporters. The local media wanted to hear his thoughts on the verdict and the case's impact on the community. "This verdict shows that justice has prevailed," Samuel told the reporters. "But our struggle doesn't end here. We will continue to work towards creating a community where everyone is treated equally and with respect." At home, after a long day, Samuel sat down with his family for a quiet meal. They talked about the trial, reflected on the challenges they had faced, and celebrated the victory. "I'm proud of you, Samuel," Vanessa said, smiling at him. "You showed courage and determination throughout this process." Samuel held Vanessa's hand. "I couldn't have done it without you by my side. You're my strength." Tyler and Chloe exchanged a proud look. "We're here to support you, Dad," Chloe said with a smile. With justice finally achieved, Samuel Reed knew he had made a difference, not just for his family, but for the entire Staunton community. The fight against prejudice and discrimination would continue, but they were more united and determined than ever. I hope you enjoyed this beautiful story of love and the struggle for equality. Like, comment, and share. Your participation is crucial for our community. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel